Hey everybody, super excited to be here with Dr. Pompa. I know you guys have been waiting on this all week long, and me too. I'm really excited, and I'm actually feeling like a little bit overdressed in my sweater, but I got back
I'm
to
in a sweater
Austin.
here, but it's
I
cool here.
know. It's like 40 degrees here
Yeah.
in Austin when it's supposed to be like 70 this time of year. So yeah, I've got the layers on today and my boots, and it's feeling very fall and festive. So thank you for joining us, Dr. Pompa.
Yeah, no, excited. This is a great topic. I love these. I love the questions. Let's bring them on.
Yes. Well, we have so many. And I was telling Dr. Pompa, I don't think we're going to get to all of them. I mean, we can try to like rapid fire this, but I have a feeling that we're going to just have to go until our time is up because you guys have so many questions and they're so good. These are really great questions. So, just to offer everyone a frame for this conversation with Dr. Pompa, as you all know, he was one of the speakers for Fix Your Female Hormones, and we have been doing Ask Me Anythings with many of our guests over the course of the last week plus. And one of the things I love about Dr. Pompa is that he's able to approach this very holistically and take us a lot of places in the conversation. So we've had experts come on that were really narrowly focused in one thing like Epstein-Barr virus or thyroid. And their expertise is super valuable, especially if that really mirrors the issues that we're dealing with. You know, we kind of want to go deep in one area. But what's great about Dr. Pompa is that he can see things more holistically and help us with context. And he can also drill into specific things because he's been practicing for so long and really understands based on his experience. You guys remember me talking to him about his family and his kids and a lot of the stressors that they had to deal with as a family. And of course, he's been dealing with this with his patients in practice. So he has just a wealth of experience. So if you left a question, I got it on the notice that we were doing this Ask Me Anything. And then Dr. Pompa, I have questions from your talk. I have questions from the Facebook group after the talk. I mean, we have 5 hours of questions. So let's just jump in. The first question is from Diana. She said, I've had low hormones for 10 plus years with chronic diarrhea. Ever since having hormone pellets inserted, the diarrhea has stopped. Can you comment?
Yeah, I mean, just like thyroid can cause constipation, hormones affect obviously the entire nerve system, right? So, therefore, any hormone dysregulation will play an effect on even bowel motility. And therefore, create the bowels either to move too slow or too fast. There's something called the MMC, and it's basically the mechanistic mechano complex where its job is to cleanse the bile, and it's very hormone related. So, so we oftentimes see that. And again, I'll say this because you said you had low hormones. The key to fixing hormones isn't necessarily giving more hormones, and there's a time for that for sure. However, the key is getting your cells to hear the hormones. And that's really what we note in very healthy people. They don't have these high hormones. They have cells that actually can hear the hormones. So, that's where, dealing with reducing cellular inflammation, doing things like fasting, the diet variation strategies that I teach, and the cellular detox, that really is how you get the cells to hear the hormones. That's the key.
That's a really good thing that you just said because this isn't a question on the list, but it's come up in our group. There's women who have tried intermittent fasting and have had great results with it. Other women have tried it that have been like, this has wrecked me. And I know that you understand contextually. Why don't you explain to everyone the context in which intermittent fasting or even prolonged fasting, a few days fasting, is right for someone so they can maybe self-identify a little bit if that's something that their body can handle.
Yeah, my diet variation principle really is the key to that because we've heard that, right? Women shouldn't fast or women shouldn't do low carb diets. That can be true for some women, as you just pointed out. But the key in what we've discovered is this diet variation concept, meaning that, I'll give you one example. So 1 week a month, if a woman does higher healthy carbs, actually high protein can actually be a benefit here too, but high carbs for 1 week a month, typically the month before her period. If you don't have a period, then just any random week. But that variation of the high carbs amongst a low carb diet, typically, your certain hormones, estrogen, thyroid, you need insulin to make the conversion. to an inactive form to a more active form, or just to another form that the cell needs to hear. So the bottom line is, by putting high carbs 1 week a month, again, typically the week before your period, it transforms you hormonally for the rest of the month. Now all of a sudden you're burning fat, you're succeeding, you feel much better. We also apply that weekly. So in other words, even 1 or 2 high carb days a week can transform intermittent fasting. So don't intermittent fast every day. So, matter of fact, my wife broke through like that because she was not successful fasting or intermittent fasting in the beginning. She couldn't even get in ketosis very well. And by doing these random higher carb times, and even, like I said, once or twice a week, transformed her. So that's typically the breakthrough for women. So either monthly variation, adding high carb times, or even 1 or 2 days a week of high carbs, healthy carbs, protein, high protein days, break it up. And then also 1 or 2 days a week, don't intermittent fast, eat 3 meals 1 or 2 days a week. But that variation reminds the body it's not starving. And the body then will continue to use fat as energy. So that's really the key.
Yeah, awesome. All right, let's go to the next one from Erin. I'm a mom of a 1.5 years and a 4-year-old. My lab work has shown a level of B12 greater than 2,000 for a few years, and doctors haven't addressed it. I don't supplement for B12. I watched one of our doctors on mini summits and was impressed with his protocol. From what I can find, I might not be absorbing the B12, so maybe I need help with steps to figure out what I should do.
Yeah, I mean, it could be an intrinsic factor. It could be a gut microbiome issue. I don't know her whole case if she has digestive issues. I've seen this common in something called SIBO, small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. Excuse me, where again, my gosh, we could talk for 2 hours just on SIBO.
Yeah,
But I'll tell you, if you're one of those people, and again, the high B12 thing is a common problem because they're not absorbing it, they're not utilizing it, but it can happen with a lot of nutrients. But one of the classic signs is you get bloated after meals, and you may not get too bloated, but you get pain after meals. A lot of people think that they have food intolerances or food allergies, and most often it's actually SIBO. So SIBO simply means that it's small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. You have bacteria that belong in your colon, your large intestine, working their way up into your small intestine. There's a lot of causative factors here. Like I said, it's a 2-hour show. We'll have to do a whole show on this, but this affects a lot of people. It affects the hormones. It's linked to rosacea. It can be linked to cancer, hormone problems, thyroid problems, and obviously just gut problems that aren't healing. But these bacteria have to be killed. You have to fix that motility of the gut, which can be a problem. You can have an ileocecal valve. That's the valve that separates your colon and your small intestine that's left open, and that lets bacteria work up. These people typically react to different foods that you wouldn't expect. Healthy foods, fibrous foods oftentimes, garlic, onions. And it can be random, but the bacteria ferment in the small intestine and cause the bloating and the discomfort. It can cause brain fog. So these are common symptoms with SIBO. But my Health Hunters radio show, literally this past week, it'll be aired Saturday morning. I did a whole show on this concept. There's things you have to take called prokinetics, things like ginger, triphala. These are herbs that help the motility of the gut. Taking those at night helps things move through, because if things aren't moving through fast enough, the bacteria start fermenting the fiber and the food in the small intestine and cause the bloat, especially at night. And then you have to kill these bacteria. Here's the problem. Certain bacteria are hydrogen producers, certain bacteria are methane producers. So the hydrogen producers typically cause diarrhea. The methane producers typically cause constipation. So there's different herbals that kill different bacteria. I'm just showing you the complexity of this, but it could be why you have a B12 absorption issue.
So let's just talk protocols, because if someone's listening and they're resonating, going, "Oh my gosh, SIBO is probably my thing." Is this something where do not pass go, do not collect $200? You absolutely have to have a functional medicine doctor or similar help you?
Yeah, you said SIBO. SIBO is a detox product.
SIBO, yeah.
SIBO is my thing.
SIBO.
On a mild case, I would say no. I would say mild case, you can beat it with certain killers, oregano oil, that works really well, for the hydrogen producers. Grapeseed extract. Obviously, garlic, like alicillin is the active component of garlic. That works even good for the methane producers. There's neem that works good for the hydrogen. Berberine that works good for the hydrogen. There's a product called Atrantil, Atran, Atron, and then Til, Atrantil. In the French, say it, Atrantil. But anyways, that works. They developed it to hit the hydrogen bacteria and the methane bacteria. That's always in one of my protocols. But you may, if you're a more severe case, you're going to need a health coach, because you have to deal with this. It's very complicated, meaning that you can have infection here. These bacteria are what can cause the body to stop the motility, because literally, and it can happen after food poisoning too, by the way, because the body literally will create an autoimmune reaction against the nerves that actually create motility. So you'll need a practitioner for that.
Okay. All right. There's been a lot of conversations around this in the community, so I hope that's helpful to a lot of people. Melissa says, I haven't slept well since 2008 when I had gastric bypass surgery. I have 2 autistic kids who also do not sleep well at night. What should we be looking into as a family to get our sleep on track? Also, what modifications to standard gut healing protocols should I be mindful of as I move forward since I've had gastric bypass surgery?
Yeah, wow. Gastric bypass surgery, it creates certain deficiencies. You have to really eat a very nutrient dense diet. Intermittent fasting works really good for it. But the problem is you have to eat the small, people can't eat large meals, right? So oftentimes you still eat in a window, but my suggestion is eat a 6-hour window, but eat small meals in that window. That typically works better for them because they can't eat one big meal, right? It just doesn't work for them. But it's still, with the intermittent fasting, it seems to really help them as long as they do it the way I suggested. I have a concern when I see a family not sleeping. I look for mold in the house. Mold, classic, it creates insomnia and sleep problems, some weird symptoms, neurological symptoms, oftentimes pain, weight loss resistance. So look for mold. If you've had water damage in the past, mold could be an issue. If your humidity is a lot, like in the summer above 50, that's a problem. So I've done a lot of shows on mold. Mold makes people sick and it creates insomnia.
Okay, that's great. Anything else on the sleep front that she should be looking into besides the mold?
Yeah, again, everyone always has their tricks for sleep, but sleep is, no doubt. I look first as a neurotoxic issue, and I brought up mold, right? Of course, heavy metal people don't sleep either, and the reason why, it gets in the pituitary hypothalamus. You need that, and the pineal gland. Those 3 things dictate cortisol, hormones, and melatonin. So, when I was sick, I couldn't sleep. I had insomnia. I either couldn't get to sleep, or I'd wake up in the middle of the night and not get back to sleep. Of course, melatonin would work, then it didn't. 5-HTP would work, then it didn't. Passion flower would work, then it didn't. Combinations would work, then it didn't. There's a product called Serifos that worked probably the most consistent for me. A company called Interplexus. You can find it, Google it. But Serifos, Seripos, and it downregulates cortisol, because a lot of the reasons people can't sleep is your body's saving its life. During the night, your glucose levels can drop. Very classic for neurotoxic people for multiple reasons, from the adrenals, not adapting to stress, low blood volume. But the glucose drops, and then it'll release adrenaline just to get the glucose up, because it has to save your brain's life. So it does that, and the adrenaline wakes you up. So Serifos, take a couple before bed on an empty stomach, and a couple when you wake up during the night. It can downregulate the cortisol and the adrenaline. I think it works better than a lot of the other sleep strategies that we discussed.
Awesome. Great hack. Okay, great. Laurel asked, okay, this is a very popular question in the community. I have been getting this question almost daily since the summit ended. So it's been a week and a half. This comes up all the time. I've been wondering about facial hair. I don't have the other PCOS symptoms, but I've had whisker hair on my chin since I was in my 20s and still now in my late 50s. I had professional electrolysis done, but I've mostly used a home unit electrolysis with new hairs every day. If not done daily, I'll have 20 hairs in a few days, some black and coarse, some light and soft. I don't get mustache hairs to speak of, and I don't have excessive hair anywhere else. Lots of women are asking about hair growth. They're dealing with these stray random hairs on their face, and even women who are saying things like, I don't supplement testosterone, or I don't have PCOS, but I'm still having this issue with facial hair. So this is a big topic.
Yeah, it is a big topic, right? And when you look at, a lot of women may not be diagnosed with PCOS, but when you look at one of the number one causes of PCOS, it's elevated insulin spikes. So you would say, well, my glucose on a blood test is normal. Problem is that every time you spike insulin and glucose, you're throwing your body into this hormonal surge, and it ages you prematurely. But insulin is a known driver of PCOS. There's a 24-hour hormone test that I like. When you look at hormones, blood hormones, they're useful for some things, but 24-hour urine, there's two labs I can recommend, Genova Labs, and you can find this one online. It's Dutch. It's the Dutch test. It's actually cheaper. But it looks at estrogen metabolites, which these metabolites from estrogen build up, and they can build up to the point of causing cancer. One called 4-hydroxyestrone is linked to breast cancer. But and it's something very simple. When you see that, you can give more methylation. So there's a product called Moors that we give, even a product called DIM that you can buy in every health food store. That often helps with that. But you can also look at a pathway that what are you doing with your testosterone, because you could be forming a toxic testosterone that can drive the hair growth. And on that test, you can see that. And then again, you can actually do something about that. There's something called 5-alpha reductase. And again, insulin drives that. So people take, reductase inhibitors and it affects their hair for the good or for the worse. But, so there's some natural things you can take, even like pumpkin seed oil, that can be a help to that. Certain omega-6 fats in certain ratios can be a help. There's really good seed oil out there called Andrea's Seed Oils. That's his website.com. People talk a lot about the importance of fish oil and all these things, but really the omega-6 in some of these really important balance of omega-6 to 3 ratios actually help the hormones, especially in this area, more so than fish oil. So it's Andrea's seed oils. He has one called the 5 seed oil. I've seen that work for this condition. And again, taking the test will give you, there's other reasons for that, but I just gave you a couple of hints.
Yeah. Awesome. Great. Okay. Another one of our attendees asks, many of our speakers discussed getting direct sunlight early in the morning. While I can agree that's an excellent idea, I don't know how practical it is for most people. I'm up a couple of hours before sunrise. By the time sunlight reaches the ground in most places in my neighborhood, I'm almost at my place of employment. To compensate, I've been waking up to a combination of a sunrise simulator clock and a blue light box, since I generally don't use caffeine and try to avoid sugar as much as possible. The last time I saw my ophthalmologist, there were concerns about the beginnings of cataracts and glaucoma. Am I hurting my eyes using these devices? Are there other options?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of those devices. It's just an imbalance of the spectrum. If you're going to do anything, it's much safer to use a Juve light. Oh, it's in the other room. I was I was thinking it was right here because it was at one point. A Juve light looks at it takes red lights, which is, by the way, the morning light. You get your most red spectrums in the morning and in the evening, and they're safe. You can even look directly into those, whereas some of the blues, can be more dangerous frequencies, even imitating ultraviolet. But the red is it's good for, number one, it stimulates a pathway called this cytochrome C pathway, which upregulates ATP. So it penetrates deep and upregulates your cellular energy. But also some other wavelengths in the red are good for collagen. So my Juve light, it's JOOVV. Juve.com. I interviewed this couple scientists on this principle, you know, and you can, my podcast has that, but it has to be powerful enough that it actually creates an impact. So I stand in front of mine almost every morning. I can't say every morning, but I answer emails.
Yeah.
There is a lot of benefit. I mean, even for like athletes do it for recovery. It's really amazing for the skin. It is healthy and there's no detrimental effects. So that would be my suggestion as a safer option.
Is there dangers using those the sunrise lights and stuff to for stimulating or being causative in any way to cataracts?
Yeah, you know, I mean, I've read, you know, I wouldn't stand on either side of that because I've read some people who feel that, you know, there are some negative benefits, etc. I don't know that to be true. I haven't really dug deep enough, but just knowing that, maybe it's not a great thing. You know, it's hard to emulate the sun spectrums, obviously. You know, I mean, we know that an imbalance of these light frequencies in homes create different issues that, you know, affect our sleep and even our hormones. So, you know, the old incandescent bulbs are the safest bulbs in the house. These, you know, LED and halogens are even out of balance, so they affect our health. So I can imagine, you know, finding out later that these these other imitations or, you know, off just enough that it's not right. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. Amy asks, how do I get rid of kidney stones successfully? I've been dealing with them since 2017. I have Hashis, celiac, SIBO, MTHFR mutations, parasites, EBV, and heavy metal mold EMF toxicity. Is this going to affect my ability to detox properly? Are the kidney stones the most pressing issue for me?
Yeah, you know, I mean, again, you can get rid of those, but with all those issues that you mentioned, you're going to keep getting kidney stones.
Yeah.
You know, because your body is, you know, it's in a state of negative calcium balance. I mean, you know, you're losing bone. You know, you're moving calcium and phosphorus through your kidneys. So, I mean, that's the issue. There's a product that I love for them. There's two. It's one called capital K Kidney from Systemic Formulas, and another one called KDIR from Systemic Formulas. You know, sometimes they get big enough where you have to use ultrasound and break them up. I mean, you know, because it can be that problematic. But, you know, you have to get upstream with those stuffs, you know, that stuff correctly. I mean, go to my website, watch, you know, my cellular detox, you know, videos, articles, interviews, because ultimately you've got some upstream issues there.
Mm-hmm. So when she says, are kidney stones the most pressing issue for me? I'm hearing you say no, your other issues are more important. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean,
Okay.
you've got some major upstream issues going on there. And again, you'll get rid of those and you'll be a month later, you'll be forming new ones.
Right. Okay. Jackie says, after reversing 15 plus conditions or symptoms, I can't seem to get my pH up, and I'm having to continue to drink baking soda 2 times a day just to keep it at 7. Without the baking soda drink, it drops to 5.5. What do you think about this? Should I be concerned about the acidity in my body?
Well, look, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about this alkalinity, acidity thing. You know, first of all, it's normal for the body to go through times of alkalinity and acidity. When we wake up in the morning, you should be acid. Your body's just dumped. I mean, it's, you know, more acid in the morning and toxin. Then you know, it's normal to go alkaline than acid. So this is a normal rhythm. You know, so it depends on when you're testing. People locked in either alkalinity or acidity is not good. So if you're always acid, if you're always alkaline, I would argue either way it's not good. So, you know, that's probably, you know, needs more testing and I need more information. But I'm not a fan of forcing alkalinity. Toxic people you know, can be acid all the time or acidic, alkaline all the time. It could be either way, you know. And again, I mean, people talk about cancer, you know, being acidic. Look, you know, again, there's misnomers there because, you know, when you look at Otto Warburg in the early 1900s, he's the one that people talk about acidity and cancer. That's where they got that information, but they really took him out of context. He was talking about the cell going through a primitive phase of glycolysis and basically making acid. So it wasn't like he was telling you to treat the acid. The acid was a downstream problem of a cell gone bad. that is, going through this primitive stage of glycolysis. So the problem is the cell, not the acidity. It's like, it's like going after the firemen because they're always at fires. It's not the case. So anyways, that's really the problem with this whole concept of being alkaline all the time. I don't like it.
Yeah. I haven't heard any. I remember being exposed to the acid alkaline thing actually through a Tony Robbins event. I did my first Tony event when I was 25 or 26 back in 2002, and he talked a lot about it then. But since I've been in the functional ancestral health space, it's not really even a topic of conversation as far as it relates to healing, or this should be a goal or whatever, because there's some parts of our body that need to be acid and some parts that need to be alkaline. And the idea that by what we're drinking every day or putting in our mouths that way is going to affect, it seems to be not something.
It's ridiculous. I mean, think about it. You're actually going against the innate intelligence, right? You think the body's not smart enough, or you think it's so stupid, that you're going to outsmart it by pushing it alkaline? It's absurd. You have to step back and ask the question, why am I locked in acidity or alkalinity? Why? There's a reason for that, right? And again, typically it's neurotoxic people are locked one way or the other. So, it's a cellular issue. It's a toxic issue. You don't win that battle by forcing alkalinity. It's absolutely going against the innate intelligence. Yeah, right. So maybe it's a thing, but we don't control it the way we think we control it. We need to go after other things in order to. That's right. Okay. All right. Leanne says, hyperparathyroidism. I've been diagnosed with this. They say surgery is the only way to heal. I've seen too many that don't get well. How should this be treated? Is there another way besides surgery? Look, a lot of these things, so many thyroid cases are autoimmune and they're just not diagnosed, right? The body's driving this problem one way or another. Look, I'm not going to tell someone to get surgery or not get surgery, but I can tell you this, you could take out glands, but then the next one goes bad because you never got to the cause, right? So I describe autoimmune like this. Imagine there's a three-legged stool. The analogy is you need three legs for it to stand up, right? Well, that's the cause of autoimmune, and therein lies the answer. So you have one leg. We all have genes of weaknesses, right? They get triggered. Part of what I do for this and teach is how to turn the genetic, gene off, right? This gene that gets triggered, we have the ability to turn them off. That's part of the answer. The other leg of the stool is the stressors that turn the gene on. If you don't get rid of those, you're not going to turn the gene off. The last leg is this microbiome piece, the gut piece. Certain bacteria need to be in certain numbers to make cells called T regulatory cells. Those cells' job is to tell your immune system that everything's fine, right? That allergen, it's okay, right? This, this heavy metal, it's just a heavy metal. It's not tissue, right? It calms down the immune system. So when you don't have enough of these bacteria, you don't produce enough of these Treg cells, and your body's in this attack inflammatory mode. And then it starts to attack those tissues. So, three legs of the stool, you have to address both. We have to do things to turn off the gene. We have to get rid of the stressors. That's where my cellular detox comes in, to turn it on. And we have to deal with the gut properly. And that's a lot where my ancient healing strategies come in. The diet variation, the fasting, the feast-famine cycles. That's really how you fix a gut, not just by giving probiotic. Okay. So when she says, how should this be treated? Is there another way besides surgery? You're recommending gut healing as a big component of this? Again, one part of it, gut healing, and then look to the neurotoxic source. When you're dealing with parathyroid or thyroid, typically heavy metals are the cause. Mercury attaches to a lot of these receptors because they're selenium receptors, and mercury attack went off. I should have put you on. I guess I can't put it on airplane mode. I wouldn't be able to hear me. Anyways, your body starts looking at that as foreign and attacking it. So you have to deal with the neurotoxic thing. Look up to mercury, and then of course, there are certain things I teach in my cellular healing of how to turn these genes off. Fasting is one of them, by the way. We can downregulate genes via fasting. So think of three causes. Think of three parts of the solution. I call that a multi-therapeutic approach when we address the genetic pathways, the causative factors, stressors, typically neurotoxins, in the gut.
Okay. All right. Diana says, do I need progesterone if I do not have a uterus or ovaries? What are your thoughts on molecular progesterone oil?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think there's a time and a place. I made that comment for, bioidentical hormones, and progesterone is absolutely the safer of, all of them. The question is, do you need them? I have seen women with 4 hysterectomies go hormone free. Your body is that stinking smart. So do you need them? No. Do some women need them? Maybe. Especially if you have other upstream toxic issues, driving the cells not to hear hormones, and you're already producing less. That's not going to go well. So the answer is, yeah, maybe you do. And I think that that's a safer version.
Okay, great. Shar says, I want to gain weight. I lose weight in my face and the places girls want to have fat in their curves when I'm stressed instead of gaining. Can this be equally stressful? I guess she's asking what hormone imbalances cause the weight loss in these areas, and how can we correct the issue?
Yeah, I mean, there's, again, a lot of causative factors here, right? So high mercury people seem to get skinny fat, right? We lose it was me. I got skinny fat. I lost muscle and gained fat in the wrong places. It's not
Right.
pretty tight. So that's a causative factor. Certain disruptions in the microbiome, ghrelin, leptin, hormone issues can be a factor. Hyperthyroid, too, that can be a factor. So yeah, hormones are the reason why people can't lose weight, and sometimes often even gain good weight, right? Let me give you another little biohack, because obviously I can't, sounds like you have a neurotoxic issue. Again, that's working with a coach, someone that understands that, one of the doctors I train, or, to that respect. But okay, here's the biohack. Bodybuilders have learned to gain muscle and stay lean to intermittent fast. Now, wait a minute. That sounds counterintuitive, Dr. Pompa. Fasting, I just told you I wanted to gain weight. Well, when you look at what happens during even a 5-day fast, even a daily fast, either one, long fast or a daily fast, daily intermittent fasting, you get hormone optimization. What that means is your body, to survive and to hold on to its muscle, will raise growth hormone. Your cells become, excuse me, let me make sure that's done. Your cells become more hormone sensitive. It raises luteinizing hormone, and therefore raises testosterone. So, all these hormone optimizations take place during a fast. But let me tell you what the bodybuilders do. They biohack this even better. They get the benefits of the fast. So maybe they'll eat in a 6 to 8 hour window. But so they're fasting for, whatever, 14, 16, whatever, 18 hours. So they get that growth hormone rise. They get the luteinizing hormone, which leads to a testosterone rise, which leads to putting on muscle. But then they eat a lot of calories in that window, because you still need to gain muscle. You still need higher protein and higher calories. That's why bodybuilders do it. Now, arguably, it's not necessarily healthy long term. It stimulates a pathway called mTOR. But the point is in the fast, you're stimulating a pathway called autophagy, very healthy. And then you're in the eating window, you're consuming more calories. It works. Bodybuilders put on muscle and stay lean. So it's a biohack. When I eat in my window, I eat a small meal and a bigger meal, but I'm not trying to gain weight. But if I were, I would eat some more calories and protein in that eating window.
Okay, great. That's a great hack. Okay. Carla said, I had a mouthful of teeth, over 20 with silver fillings, plus 9 root canals. My mouth was in very bad shape due to health problems, plus infections as I was growing up. I made a decision with my dentist to remove the teeth and have dentures plus 2 implants. When the teeth were removed, it was done with the conventional method. I didn't know there was another way. She just learned through the event, about bioidentical or dentist. What am I trying to say? Biological dentistry.
Yes.
It's been about 4 years. I've always wondered about the mercury. So she had tons of mercury. She's concerned about mercury toxicity. What are the chances that she might still have mercury issues 4 years after these teeth were pulled? And if there is a potential for mercury issues, what would you recommend for detoxing?
Whew, boy, this is a loaded question. Look, I was mercury poisoned, and I deal with mercury poisoned clients from all over the world continually. There's two problems here, potential problems. Man, this is going to save your life. So when these mercury fillings, mercury vapor crosses the blood-brain barrier, and it bioaccumulates, and it turns to inorganic mercury in the brain. Even when you take the fillings out, it's locked in here as inorganic mercury. So the methyl mercury has a short half-life, the organic mercury. But the problem is this inorganic mercury, it's there for life, very long half-life. You have to use the right process to get it out. This is what I teach, right? There's a prep phase. There's a body phase. Wait, so I took the phone off the hook and then it starts beeping.
No
there's
worries.
a body phase where we're just trying to clear the easy to get toxins. And then there's the brain phase. That's what saved my life. Most of that mercury builds up in the pituitary hypothalamus. I couldn't figure out my thyroid. I couldn't figure out my adrenals, my whole hormone system. As much as I tried, I ran every test. The problem was in the control tower. The bigger problem was it was loaded with mercury. Silver fillings the whole life, had opposing metals, which creates galvanism, and even more mercury vapor goes into the brain. I did a brain phase of detox, which is a little different for everybody. The chelator that you would use, the cycles, because it has to be cycled, days on, days off. And what I teach doctors and what I teach even the clients I take on myself is how to figure that out. Because I did it for 4 years to get the mercury out of my brain. I hate when I hear this. Oh, I went to my doctor. He muscle tested me or did this test, and he put me on a mercury or a heavy metal detox. How long? 3 months. He said I'm good now. Oh my! If you understood the science of how these things bioaccumulate, you realize how silly that actually sounds. But it does take years, not months, to get out of the brain. That's why the person really has to learn the process. Okay, that's one issue. The second issue is when you get teeth pulled, you oftentimes create cavitations. What cavitations are is that it heals over, but underneath in the bone, it creates an infection, a cave, if you will, that becomes infected. This makes people so sick. Last week, I sent a gentleman, I'll tell you 2 quick stories. He said he went to my dentist in New York who specializes in cavitations, Dr. Jerry Curatola. I interviewed him on my podcast. He went there. He had pain all randomly through his body. He had liver pain for years. He had testicular pain, prostate issues, up urinating 4 times a night, major issues. He went to Jerry. He found a few cavitations, but one large one. He cleared it. Literally that day, his liver pain went away. He's now urinating 1 time a night, and that was just last week. And 80% of his pain throughout his whole body went away. I mean, just by getting the cavitation out. So I just got off literally with an orthopedic surgeon. He's a client of mine. And he had all these bizarre things going on, could barely work. And he gets this x-ray called a cone beam done, which I told him to get. It's a 3D x-ray. He has a regular dentist read it. He says, oh, it looks fine. He read it like a plain film. By the way, the cone beam, CONEBEAM, is the x-ray you need to check for these things, okay? Anyways, I said, you got to take it to this dentist, and it's a guy on the West Coast. And he reads it 6 cavitations, 6, and as in explaining all of these bizarre symptoms he has. Anyway, I'm telling you, this is such a passion of mine because, I have people that go to the best functional medicine doctors, the best doctors on the planet, and they miss this stuff continually. They don't know how to get mercury out of the brain. They don't understand these cavitations and how they drive autoimmunity, root canal infections, and how they make people sick, drive cancer. It's a frustration of mine. It really is. But it's a passion because I watch people's lives change when you get upstream to the cause.
Right. Okay. So let me ask a couple questions about this because I want to make sure this is actionable. So we have people not only all over the country, women all over the country in this community, but I've been talking to women from South America or South Africa and women from Australia. I mean, they're like all over the world. So we can even mention a couple of doctors, and that's not even accessible to people. So when we talk about doing really good mercury detoxification from the brain, can you give people a path? Like, do you recommend like the Bio mercury heavy metal detox? Do you recommend the Quicksilver program? Is there a different program that you recommend? Like what can you tell people, these mostly women who are in this community who are like, I want to do something about this, but I'm going to go to my doctor and they're not going to have the answer. So I need to take them something that is going to get me on the right path. Like what advice can you give?
If you're very challenged, please work with one of the doctors I've trained. I've trained thousands of doctors, in this. My platinum group of doctors is the very trained doctors. If you get on my website, I still take clients. I'm virtual. My people are from all over the world. And my goal is to teach them what I teach the docs, the process, so they do it long enough to matter. But also I have doctors trained. You can go there and, find someone. But look, this is a big problem doing it right. I developed something called the True Cellular Detox Program, but it's more for someone who's mild. If you have bigger challenges, you need a coach. You really do, because your doses are going to be different. Even the binders and chelators you use can be different than what works for one person than the other. There's a process that you have to follow. Certain chelators have to be taken every few hours because their half-life short, some differently. This isn't something you fool around with. I've watched people get sick on chlorella, cilantro, these weak herbal binders that aren't even binders at all, especially for things as dangerous as heavy metals. I've watched people botch heavy metal toxicity like no other. So, I'm telling you, I sound self-serving to say, go to my website and watch and read the videos. But listen, the only reason I'm passionate about this is I was that guy. I was the guy online trying to figure it out, getting sick from all these other methods. So I have a place to stand in this of like, listen, I was the guy who got sick because I juiced cilantro. And my wife thought she was going to have to put me in an insane asylum, because I wanted to die and kill myself. So, I know a lot about the topic, not because I studied it, although I did, but because I lived it. Yeah. So, be very cautious around this topic, please.
Yeah, this is one that kind of snuck up on me too, the metals one, because I connected the dots earlier this year. It was doing the interviews for the summit that actually helped me. I've talked about my mysterious 45-pound weight gain, and through listening to doctors, I went back in time, was like, there was that time that they removed the mercury from my teeth without using a dam. They just drilled it out. And it was within a couple of months that I put on 45 pounds in like 4 months. And that was the event that kicked it off. So I've done these other things, and hormones helped, and, doing all the lifestyle stuff helped. But I'm currently doing a heavy metal detox right now, working with a practitioner locally. And I'm noticing metabolic shifts right now for me. Like my metabolism just really seems to be.
There's just to kind of put it, this is an important enough topic, I think, to broaden it a little bit here.
Yeah.
Look, so people go to I already said the alternative doctors, they use these herbal binders, which are weak binders. They're just not going to bind a heavy metal. And so that's a mistake because it creates redistribution. Or they'll go to their MD or a functional MD and they'll get IV chelation, which is a real binder. And it has a thiol group, either DMPS or DMSA. But the problem is in an IV, you can't take it often enough to prevent the redistribution. So they go and do an IV and they go home. DMPS is an example. It leaves the body. Its half-life is about 8-10 hours. Now you're in 12-15 hours, you're redistributing mercury going across your brain. That doesn't work. People get more sick. And on this side, the binders are so weak that it's just creating redistribution. So if you use something like DMSA, it has to be taken every 4 hours, and you have to go at least 3 days. So we phase it 3 on, 4 off, or 4 on, 10 off. DMPS can be taken 3 times. Cytodetox, all of our docs use it. It's a chelator where some of the particles go in the cell, some of them stay out to prevent redistribution. But it's taken 3 times a day, and it has to be cycled. And then when we get to the brain phase, we use alpha lipoic acid. But you can't start with that. You have to clear the body first before you get to that. Listen, that's the only method that's really shown to work. And I have experienced it all, and thousands of people going through it. That's why my passion is training doctors. I'm doing a seminar in Las Vegas coming here up in the beginning of November, training more and more doctors in these processes.
Yeah. Well, ironically, the next question is from Nikki. She says, what binders can you use to detox? That was not planned. you said in your interview, you know, a lot don't really work. So what works and where can you get them? And she says, I'm in South Africa. Also, is it safe for someone losing weight rather than gaining weight?
Yeah, I mean the binders, I did mention them, right? DMPS, you have to do it orally. You know, it has to be taken three times a day, right? But that's a script. So you'd have to talk to your doctor. And then DMSA has to be taken every 4 hours, right? I mean, it has a little shorter half-life. Cytodetox 3 times, it's a little easier. Cytodetox, you just have to be a professional doctor to buy it, but you don't need a script. You can buy it on my website. Or yours. Matter of fact, you should be an affiliate for that product. Actually, you need to talk to my team. I mean, you people know your website. I don't want to send them to mine. Here's the thing: look, let me just kind of draw a picture here in your minds. If I had my board, I would draw it. But look, real detox has to go at the cell. You have to upregulate cell function. If you don't do that, you're dead in the water. So because that's where the problem is. So part of my process is upregulating the very pathways of the cell that detox every day. And when they are fouled up because of neurotoxins, it doesn't matter how many colon cleanses you do, liver cleanses, or what you do down here, or even chelators that you use. You have to get these pathways in the cell fixed. And my 5 R's, I don't have time to get into it, but it is a roadmap of how we fix the cell. But here's the other part. We use the product, like I said, Cytodetox. We use it to get into the cell, and some of the particles stay outside the cell, act as a vehicle to bring the toxins at least to the liver. There, oftentimes, they get bound up in the bile complex. It's thick, fatty substance. It holds toxins. The problem is then the bile gets dumped in the gut. And then the gut, your body is designed to reabsorb the bile back to the liver. Guess what it brings with it? Toxins. So we use another binder called Bind, B-I-N-D. It sits in the gut. It doesn't leave the gut. It acts as a catcher's mitt. And therefore, when the bile that carries all these toxins that we just brought from the cell with the cytodetox, when it dumps it into the gut, there it sits to grab it so it goes out of the body. So that's a simple process that I've taught for years. Upregulate the cell, bring the toxins, to the liver and the kidneys, bind them in the gut so you don't reabsorb them. Right. And that's a process that works. And then eventually we work to getting them out of the deeper tissue like the brain.
Okay. Here's from, I'm probably going to butcher the name, Valsimot, Valsimot. My question would be, if a chronic viral infection like HIV makes more damage to the body than antiretroviral therapy that's been given, am I making sense there? That seemed like an incomplete sentence. If the patient's CD4 were high enough, even after 10 years after infection, and the viral load is not too high because of a healthy lifestyle and supplements, is it safe to keep on refusing the therapy, even if specialists are insisting on it in order to make the viral load undetectable?
Well, look, I don't think it's my position to comment on medications, whether you should take them or not. So I'm not going to do that. I've seen some of those therapies you're talking about actually work, right, with the viral load. So arguably, if it gets high enough, I think there's a reason to do it. So, obviously I don't know your case, so I'm not going to tell you to do it or not do it. But obviously there's a time when it may not work either, right? And I'll tell you about viruses is that some people, they're opportunistic. You can live healthy lives with certain viral counts if you do everything else right and not be sick, whether it's as simple as a herpes virus or HIV. So my advice would be, everything that we teach, that you teach, that I teach, do, and your immune system can figure it out. It's that smart. It really is. Whether you take the medication or not, I don't know the situation.
Okay. All right. Next question is from Karina. I have always had eczema and acne and have 2 close relatives dealing with serious chronic skin rashes, dark, raised, itchy scarring. We've all seen lots of doctors, taken lots of supplements, and paid for lots of tests, but no resolution yet. Additionally, we each have Hashimoto's and have been eating gluten and dairy-free for a long time. We've also tried the Walls protocol, paleo, and no histamine diets without change to the skin. This is affecting different generations and male, female as well. We're looking for where to start now since food doesn't seem to make a difference. The environmental factors have been addressed like additives, soaps, etc. We're curious what to look for next and hoping someone can help us. We're desperate.
Detox the cell. Honestly, that is the easy answer there. But here's another biohack. That Juve light works really good for a lot of the stuff that you recommended on the skin. And then I also remember what I said about autoimmune, the three-legged stool. All three of those areas need to be addressed. You have a gene that's turned on. You have to turn off that gene. And again, I teach a whole class on that. So I bring these things up, and I feel bad because it's not one simple thing. Right?
Sure. It's okay.
My whole 5 R's of how to fix a cell is how we turn off genes. Fixing a cell membrane is how a key portion of how we turn off a gene. And then the cellular detox is the center leg. That's the stressors that typically turn on the gene. And then the gut stuff. And again, here's another biohack for what you said, fasting. You said the diet's not helping. Yeah, you're probably right. Fasting is the key. So periodic fast, even the fasting mimicking diet or partial fast, 5 days a month, every other month, a water fast. Again, I mean, putting in 2 to 3 times a week where you eat one meal, that's a longer intermittent fast. I'm telling you, the hormone optimization there, and hormones are an issue. You'll be surprised at what that does.
Okay. How do I treat group B strep? This is from Diana. What test do I need to ask for if I have swelling in the temples? Could this be related to the strep? I've had 2 episodes of vaginal bleeding without a uterus or ovaries. Doctors are clueless, but a vaginal culture came back abnormal with strep. I've never had it before.
There's a DesBio. Do you sell that on your site? It's a homeopathic company.
I'm familiar with DesBio. I've done their protocols.
Yeah. They have a product called Bacteria Plus and a Staph Strep product, and even a Staph Strep series that we utilize for that. And here's another one too. Is behind me, you can't see it. There's an ozone machine. It's about it's under $1,000. And ozone, my gosh, I think everyone should have one of these machines in their house. I mean, you can literally put the ozone in your ears. Oh my gosh. Then you can do it vaginally. I mean, you can do it rectally, which, I can't say I do it every day, but darn close. And it's just amazing for the immune system. We think of ozone just as being a killer, but really, we've learned that it actually just upregulates immunity like crazy. I mean, so anyways, that's another biohack there. So, but there's some quick solutions.
Yeah. All right. Next question is from Renee. What if you are hypothyroid and have high ferritin and you're in menopause? How do you treat it?
Well, high ferritin is a big problem. It's very oxidative. So when you look at your range, I mean, they'll allow up to 300 or 350. It's way too high. You should be, at least below 100. Many people think, literally 40 to 70 is a better range of ferritin levels. So what do you do about it? You just donate blood. You take off about 500 cc's, of blood. And I'll tell you what, you'll feel better the next day just because ferritin is very oxidative. And, get your ferritin levels checked. I mean, it creates oxidative stress, inflammation, heart attack, strokes. The research is strong. Watch how much oral vitamin C you're taking because, some people are prone to, build up ferritin just by taking too much vitamin C. Some people have high ferritin because of a condition called hemochromatosis. If you have ferritin over 1,000, that could be the case. So anyways, yes, the ferritin is an issue, but it's a simple answer. It's cheap and easy. Get a bloodlet.
Okay. Alrighty. This is from Jackie. What are your views on Candida from a cellular level? And how does Candida feed on hormones?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I had severe Candida, but again, I would beat it back with everything possible. Grapefruit seed extract, I'm sure you've tried it all, right? Oregano, garlic, I mean, you name it. And it just came back. It wasn't until I got my heavy metals down to a certain point that my Candida magically went away. Listen, we all have it. It's opportunistic, right? So again, if you can't get rid of Candida, what's going on upstream? Think heavy metals for that one as well.
Okay. Lisa, this is our last question. Dr. Pompa, you made it through all the questions. You got to start. Okay.
Hopefully I got all the right answers.
Right. That's the more important angle. Lots to think about for sure. Okay, this is from Lisa. I have a question about Lyme disease. Twice my youngest son has been bitten by a nymph tick and had an obvious round ring on his body. He took antibiotics within 48 hours. Should I go ahead and have him detox even though there's no signs of Lyme?
Yeah, so this is another whole show. This is a great question. Look, Lyme, we've learned it's too is opportunistic, meaning that we have certain places in the US on the East Coast that 90% of the people are testing positive for Lyme. We're getting better testing, no doubt. But why they're not sick? Not all of them are sick. I would say again, we could talk about, some people have Epstein-Barr virus, herpes virus, they're not sick. But if their immune system comes down, now all of a sudden they start expressing symptoms. Look, there's a time to take an antibiotic. If you just get bit by a tick and you start expressing any symptom or get a rash, yeah, that's the time antibiotic would work. Once it's chronic, then it's not going to work. It's going to drive it into a cyst phase or a cell wall deficient phase, and you're going to end up just wiping out your immune system with the antibiotic. So time and a place. Lyme, once it goes chronic, you typically have to deal with the heavy metals because it'll hide in and around the heavy metals. Klinghardt has made that statement, and I agree. Clinically, we found the same thing, and I, again, trained a large group of doctors, so we're able to talk about these things and go, yeah, this is really the key problem is dealing with the heavy metals with some of these chronic Lyme cases. People living in moldy homes will struggle more with Lyme. So, other neurotoxic exposures play a big role. When you deal with Lyme, you have to cycle, you have to use certain killers, like 2 or 3 natural killers. So, maybe it's cat's claw, maybe it's like a type of silver. And maybe you do it for a week or 2. Then you come off for a week or 2, and then you rotate 3 new killers because the bacteria are that smart. So you have to rotate your killers. You have to keep your lymphatics open because it'll back up fast on you. You have to support all your detox pathways, and you have to deal with the heavy metals. So there's a little Lyme lesson, but that's a whole lecture right there.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much for finishing up your day, answering all these questions. I know the women are really grateful that you took some time to spend with us as a follow-up to the summit. We have lots of women who have been really intrigued by your protocols, and I'm just glad to know that there's a place that they can go to get more information, that you've got a great group of doctors and practitioners that can help, because a big challenge that we have is, we learn all this stuff and there's certain things that we can certainly do on our own, but then, what happens when you hit a wall and you've taken yourself as far as you can and you really need someone to give you a hand up to the next level. So thank you for spending time with us.
Yeah, and I hope we hit that balance. We gave as many biohacks we can, but at a certain point, you need help. Hey, make sure my team shares this on my Facebook.
Okay.
So, we'll make sure that we do that. So more people we educate, the better. Thanks.
That's right. Thank you so much. We appreciate it, Dr. Pompa. See you guys later.
Bye-bye.